वनचारी जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्रोत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Together we shall recite Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam Devyam saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya भगवती उत्तम श्लोके ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Hare Krishna. So we are reading today from Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 20th. You can please repeat behind me. Snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā snigdha-smitāvalokena śrī-niketena cātmanā. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. Mothers. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. snigdha-smitāvalokena vācā pīyūṣa-kalpayā caritreṇānavadyena śrī-niketena cātmanā. Snigdha, gentle. Smita-avalokena, by a glance with a sweet smile. Vācā, by words. Pīyūṣa-kalpayā, compared to nectar. Caritreṇa, by character. Anavadyena, without flaw. Śrī, fortune. Niketena, residence. Ca, and. ātmanā, by his transcendental body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweet smiling face, his nectarian words, and his flawless character. Purport: In the previous verse, it is described that Lord Kṛṣṇa, being situated in the truths of Sāṅkhya philosophy, is detached from all kind of matter. In the present verse, it is described that he is the residence of the goddess of fortune. These two things are not at all contradictory. Lord Kṛṣṇa is detached from the variegatedness of the inferior nature, but he is in eternal blissful enjoyment of the spiritual nature, or his internal potency. One who has a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand this distinction between the external and internal potencies. In Bhagavad-gītā, the internal potency is described as Parashakti. This Parashakti and her manifestations are described in the Brahma-saṁhitā as ānanda-cinmaya-rasa-pratibhāvitābhiḥ. The Lord is eternally joyful and cognizant in the taste derived from such transcendental bliss. Negation of the variegatedness of the inferior energy does not necessitate negation of the positive transcendental bliss of the spiritual world. Therefore, the Lord's gentleness, his smile, his character, and everything related to him are all transcendental. Such manifestations of the internal potency are the reality, of which the material shadow is only a temporary representation, from which everyone with proper knowledge must be detached. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Jinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhe Vacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Viṣṇu Purāṇa Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, I feel very honored, very grateful to be here, having the opportunity to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam in the presence of Radha Madhav's devotees. I would also like to seek blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas, especially Srila Prabhupada disciples. So, here in this chapter is entitled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. Out of Vrindavan means outside of Vrindavan, basically. So, Mahatma Vidura, he has placed several enquiries before Uddhava, and he basically asked the well-being of all the Yadavas. In reply, Uddhava started recollecting their pastimes. Actually, all have disappeared, but he just recollects their pastimes. So this is just like Smaran of the Lord, and this is Smaran of Krishna, Smaran of the Vaishnavas, of the devotees. So this chapter, Lord's pastime in Vrindavan, his pastime outside of Vrindavan, this is just the Smaran, remembrances of the Lord and his devotees. And the heart of Vidura is very much aggrieved, very much pained. And similarly the heart of Vidura. Both of them, they know that the Lord and his dynasty has disappeared, and they are very much pained at heart, very much aggrieved at heart. So these remembrances of the Lord, recollecting the pastime, is actually bringing solace to their heart. Solace to their heart. So that's the way of when one feels separation from someone, the remembrance of that person actually brings association of that person, because Prabhupada describes on an absolute platform the remembrance of the Lord and his devotees is same as their association. Just like Srila Prabhupada would say, oh, today I am feeling so much separation from a spiritual master. He would say that. Other times he would say, I have never been separated from a spiritual master. Right? How could the two be true? Because in separation, he would remember his spiritual master and he would feel the association of his spiritual master. So the remembrance of the Lord and pure devotees is also on absolute platform, their association. So in separation from Krishna, both these Mahabhagavatas, Uddhava and Viduraji, they both are recollecting the pastimes of the Lord, and that is bringing great solace to their heart, because the remembrance of the Lord is same as his association. So this is in the context of the chapter what we are discussing. So the pastimes outside of Vrindavan, where all did Lord perform pastimes outside of Vrindavan? He performed the pastime in Mathura, Dwarka and Hastinapur. So now this particular verse is Lord's, the last verse also, is describing the Lord's pastime in Dwarka. So Prabhupada in this purport says, the previous verse, the last verse, text 19, describes that the Lord was situated in knowledge and detachment. He was in household life. While executing his duties in the household life, he was situated in knowledge and detachment. And this verse says how he was actually enjoying the company of all his wives. Just a contrast. So this verse says that he was very gentle, very sweet. He would speak nectarian words, his character was flawless, and so on. And they are just placed next to each other, seemingly contradictory. But Prabhupada said there is no contradiction. The Lord is always detached from the activities of external energy, but he is always enjoying the activities of his internal energy. That's what Prabhupada beautifully describes in this particular purport. So, yeah. So I thought today in this class we will discuss little bit more about how the Lord's external energy acts, how the Lord internal energy acts. This is important for us because we are placed in between the two. We are marginal energy. So there is external energy and there is internal energy, and we are in between the two. And our position, marginal energy, means either sometimes we are under external energy or internal energy. Basically, we can only choose these two positions. We can't remain in marginal position actually. Though we are marginal energy, our position will be either under the two, or probably sometimes here, etc. As you say, 1 feet here, 1 feet here. The combination of the two, somewhere. So I thought we'll discuss about these two energies of the Lord and how they act, and how can we deal with these two energies. So Lord Kṛṣṇa describes in Bhagavad-gītā 3:27, he says, Prakritehi kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahamkar vimūಢātmā kartahamiti manyate. So as we just discussed, that we as marginal energy will be either under the shelter of external energy or internal energy. When someone chooses to embrace external energy, then a person almost loses one's independence. That's the verse 3:27 describes. Then all these activities are carried away by the external energy. Krishna says, Prakriti kriya manani guna karmani sarvasha ahamkar vimūಢātmā kartahamiti manyate. Out of false pride, person thinks, I am acting. No, the external energy is acting. So it is sort of like a haunted condition. Like someone is haunted by a ghost or something, then that person almost loses one's independence, and the person helplessly acts being haunted. So when we choose to embrace the external energy, our condition is like sort of being haunted by external energy, and we almost lose our independence, almost. But the free will independence is there in making choices. But when we make this choice, we almost become helpless. To give you an example of that, there was a person who was addicted to smoking. So his friend told him, he said, don't you know that smoking is injurious to health? Tobacco causes cancer, and it's written in big fonts on the cigarettes or everywhere. Earlier the font used to be very small. Now they increased, the government, they made the regulation, it should be big font, it should be written, tobacco causes cancer. So it's written in very bold letters, very much visible. So don't you understand this? Can't you give it up? Can't you give up smoking? This person said, giving up smoking? No big deal. I have given it up many times. I will give it up again. Right? So like that. So we are actually helpless. We almost lose our independence when we take shelter of the external energy of the Lord. So that is 3.27. And as we understand, though we embrace external energy by our choice, the external energy also embraces us. We now cannot get free from the external energy simply by our own strength. Though by our own choice we have embraced the Lord external energy, to become free by our own strength, of course we need to have the discretion, we need to make the choice that I want to become free. But simply by our own choice and simply by our own effort, we cannot become free from the shackle of external energy. And this Lord Kṛṣṇa describes in 7:14, where he says, Devi Hesha Gunmayi Mama Maya Durattaya Mame Vaye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. So to become free from this external energy, we need to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Or we need to surrender to Krishna. How do we surrender to Krishna? We take to his devotional service. That is the process of surrendering to Krishna. So we execute devotional service. And the devotional service is executed under the shelter of internal energy. So therefore, Krishna describes that how do the great souls, Mahatma, who are the Mahatmas? Those who have taken shelter of the internal energy. Mahatma nastu mam partha devim prakritim ashritaha. They have taken shelter of my internal energy. So therefore, the whole journey of Krishna consciousness is basically can be seen that we want to free ourselves from the external energy, increasingly become detached from external energy, and increasingly become attached to the internal energy of the Lord, or take shelter of internal energy of the Lord. So that's the journey of Krishna consciousness. Or we can say the journey of Krishna consciousness is from the external activities to the eternal activities. So the external activities are temporary, and they are the cause of ever increasing frustration. So we can see that the external energy in this world brings frustration to all the activities. Fifth canto also describes para bhavastavad bodha jato yavat na jigyasit atmatattvam. A person who does not inquire into self-realization, that person is sure to be defeated in one's all activities. So therefore, we need to become detached from the activities of external energy and increasingly take shelter of the internal energy of the Lord. And actually there is no limit to which we can surrender, because the surrender word is sharanagati. Gati means there is a movement, and there is no limit to which we can surrender to the Lord. Actually there is no higher limit. I remember in our college, the boys, the boys, they printed a T-shirt. They used to bring a T-shirt with a theme, an annual T-shirt, and there was a theme, and they wrote on the T-shirt, "Sky is the limit." Sky is the limit, and they wrote the lower limit. Basically, there is no limit to. They wanted to say that there is no limit to the material progress that we can make, the technology advancement. There is no limit to it. But actually speaking, there is no limit to the surrender, there is no limit to the service which we can do to Krishna. Prabhupada says, a devotee wants to serve Krishna with ever increasing enthusiasm, ever increasing eagerness, and there is no limit to it. There is no limit to it. So therefore, there is no limit to how much we can actually progress in our surrender to Krishna, or how much we take shelter of internal energy. We can ever increasingly take shelter of internal energy of the Lord. There is no upper limit. So once we, just like we discussed, that how when we take shelter of Krishna's external energy, that external energy increasingly frustrates us, and we almost lose our independence. Similarly, when we take shelter of Lord's internal energy, that internal energy ever increasingly facilitates our devotional service. And then a devotee, we can see that how how Prabhupada took shelter of internal energy of the Lord. Srimati Radharani, amongst the Lord's internal energy, his Sarup Shakti, the personification or the highest form of his internal energy is Srimati Radharani. So Prabhupada took shelter of the internal energy, Srimati Radharani, and how miraculously, within a short time, how Prabhupada preached and transformed the world situation within a 10-year span. So while external energy ever increasingly frustrates our attempts and desires, when we take shelter of internal energy, it ever increasingly facilitates our devotional service to Krishna. And we all can experience that. The more we take shelter of the Lord, the more our devotional service is facilitated. The example for this can be taken Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj, he had the darshan of the Lord. He wanted to glorify. But he was not able to. Then the Lord touched his counsel on Dhruva's head. And then all his senses were empowered by the internal energy. And then he could offer such beautiful prayers. And Prabhupada describes, this is the empowerment of the internal energy of the Lord. Right? How it facilitates one's devotional service. So, yeah. So now this is understanding the two energies. As I said, that how we are the marginal energy, we have to be under external or internal energy. So now, in every situation that occurs to us, whatever happens to us as practicing devotees, we can see the situation from both the perspective, and that is actually a complete perspective. So I would like to give the example of Mahatma Vidura. Now Mahatma Vidura, lifelong he served Dhritarashtra very loyally, and he was a genuine well-wisher, and he was a younger brother, genuine well-wisher. But then in his old age, when it's time to retire, he was actually royally sacked from his job by Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana. And what was the retirement benefit? Just throw him out, leave his life heir with him. That was a great favor done by Duryodhana. Leave him with his life heir. And Prabhupada says, had Duryodhana been fully in control, then he would like to take his life heir also away. But then, so leave him with his life heir. Any pension, beat him with the whip. While beat him with the whip, throw him out of the palace, just leave him with the life heir. So that was the pension and the retirement benefits which Mahatma Vidura got after a lifelong of loyal and dedicated service. So externally, his whole career, you can say, if you want to speak in terms of career, the whole career of Mahatma Vidura was a total failure. It ended with a total failure, absolutely. The whole lifelong service now thrown out of the palace while being whipped by Duryodhana. So now what was the response of Duryodhana? So from here we will see what was the response of Mahatma Vidura. From here we will see that any situation that occurs to us, we should see from the eyes of Mahatma Vidura, how he saw the situation, how he saw these two energies acting simultaneously. So I am just reading the verse and the translation in this context. This is on the 3rd canto, 1st chapter. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears. So Duryodhana also spoke very harshly, very sharp words. Thus being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. Now just imagine if, like, we experience such a frustration. We have done great service and we are just royally sacked from somewhere, thrown out of a service, something like that. How much sorry we will feel, how much we would want to express that, what an injustice has taken place. That when our heart is aggrieved, we like to, feel sorry about ourselves, and attracts other sympathy. And describe that to many people and attract their sympathy. So now this is the situation of Mahatma Vidura. So he put his bow on the door and quit the brother's palace. He was not sorry. He didn't feel sorry, for he considered the acts of external energy to be supreme. So he saw that Duryodhana is acting under the influence of external energy. So Prabhupada beautifully describes in the purport. Prabhupada says, the external energy of the Lord, the material nature, is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, and the conditioned soul is fully under the grip of external energy. Duryodhana was acting under such influence of the external energy by which he would be vanquished at the ultimate end. He could not accept the sound advice of Vidura, but on the contrary, he insulted that great soul, who was the well-wisher of the whole family. Now, further, Prabhupada writes, in spite of being very strongly insulted by Duryodhana's word, Vidura could see that Duryodhana, under the influence of external energy, was making progress on the path toward ruination. He therefore considered the acts of external energy to be supreme. Yet, he also saw how the internal energy of the Lord helped him in that particular situation. So now he is seeing external energy acting, and he also sees internal energy acting in the same situation. So Prabhupada further writes, a devotee is always in a renounced temperament because the worldly attractions can never satisfy him. Vidura was never attracted by the royal palace of his brother. He was always ready to leave the palace and devote himself completely to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana. So instead of finding any fault with Duryodhana, first of all, he just saw that Duryodhana is helplessly acting as an instrument of external energy. Just like somebody is mad and person is acting out of control, then we don't find fault. Somebody is mad, haunted, then you don't find fault with that person. Similarly, as we discussed, the external energy is haunting all conditioned souls. So a devotee sees this person is acting helplessly under external energy, and the devotee doesn't see the fault in that person. Rather, Prabhupada says, now when he saw the situation from internal energy perspective, he saw that now internal energy of the Lord is giving me the opportunity to fully surrender myself. And Prabhupada writes further, so now he got the opportunity by the grace of Duryodhana, and instead of being sorry at the strong words of insult, he thanked Duryodhana from within. From within he thanked him, because it gave him the chance to live alone in a holy place and fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. So therefore, this purport of Prabhupada is very insightful and helpful to us, because every situation that we come across, every situation, you take any situation, you can, if you just see the situation from external energy point of view, especially a challenging situation, a difficult situation, if you see from external energy point of view, we will feel very discouraged and frustrated. But the same situation, if we see from internal energy point of view, we will feel encouraged. The whole paradigm will change. To give you one example, Prabhupada, he got married in his youth to a lady named Radharani. That was her civil name, not initiated name. So Radharani, he got married, and somehow Prabhupada writes that his wife was not to his liking. She was not able to, as we all know how Prabhupada had his spiritual priorities, but she never kind of became inclined spiritually. So his wife was not to his liking, and thus he decided to get married again. It's written there in Amrit. So his father, Gaur Mohande, his father told him, what did his father say? I'd just like to read that. So his father told him that it is good that, his father said, my dear boy, you are eager to take a second wife, but I would advise you not to. it is Krishna's grace that your present wife is not to your liking. Take it as a great fortune. If you do not become too attached to your wife and family, that will help you in your future advancement in spiritual life. And Prabhupada, that phrase clicked his heart. Your future advancement in spiritual life, it will help you. And that was very, it was very striking to Prabhupada. Future advancement in spiritual life. So his father foresaw his future advancement in spiritual life. And thus told him, your wife is not your liking, it's a cause of frustration for you. But see the situation from internal perspective now, right? And this will come to your advantage for your future advancement in spiritual life. See situation from this perspective. And the whole perspective changed. Now, one devotee was speaking and he said, we should actually thank Prabhupada's wife. Because, then Prabhupada could take sannyas because of her. Because she chose tea instead of me. Right? We should thank her for that internally within. Because then Prabhupada took sannyas and he could reach out to all of us. Right? So therefore internally we can thank. You see, the whole perspective changes. So therefore, we need to, from the life of great souls, from Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to train our mind and intelligence to not just see every situation externally, but to see how the Lord's internal energy is also helping me. Because any sincere practicing devotees, the Lord's internal energy is also helping. And if you see external energy and internal energy, their purpose is one, though they are acting seemingly in opposite way. So the external energy is trying to harass us, just like Durga with her Trishul, threefold miseries, trying to harass us so that we run faster toward Krishna. And the internal energy is ever increasingly invites us into the loving service of Krishna. It always encourages us. So therefore both energies are actually acting for the same purpose, in the same direction. So we should see both energies having harmony, actually in the ultimate sense. I would just like to give another example of these two energies from Srimad Bhagavatam. So another example is that of Maharaj Anga. So Maharaj Anga, he had no son, and then he got a son. Who was the son? The Vena was his son. So Maharaj Anga's perspective, now two verses parallel in Srimad Bhagavatam. After he got Vena as his son, he glorifies people who have no son. So the king thought to himself, he is speaking in Bhagavatam, he says, persons who have no son are certainly very fortunate, he says. They must have worshipped the Lord in their previous lives so that they would not have to suffer the unbearable happiness caused by a bad son. Right? This is Maharaj Anga's perspective on getting a bad son. But then, this is seeing from external perspective. Then his perspective changed. He looked the situation from internal perspective. And then what does he say? From internal perspective, then he spoke the next verse. He says, a bad son is better than a good son. Because a good son creates an attachment for home, where a bad son does not. So in this way, when he looked internally, he said, this is opportunity for me now to become detached. Of course, he was not irresponsible. We should understand detachment does not mean irresponsibility. He tried his best to give a good education to his son. He tried his best to reform his son. But then it was not happening. It was not happening. Just like Prabhupada also. He tried to bring his wife to Krishna consciousness. Not just once. He was continuously supporting her financially and trying to bring her to Krishna consciousness. He tried so much. He was fully responsible. Detachment sometimes, detachment becomes actually immaturely, we may think detachment means irresponsibility, or we may act irresponsibly on the name of detachment. That is never supported by Srimad Bhagavatam or the example of the Acharyas. So, although he tried his best and that did not happen, finally he took shelter of internal energy and saw situation internally, that the Lord is now detaching me from this situation, from attachment to Son, and now let me fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore his whole perspective changed. Before he was feeling very discouraged and frustrated, now he felt greatly encouraged. So therefore, Prabhupada, I will conclude with the words of Prabhupada in 6th chapter of the first canto. Prabhupada says, confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step, that means every step, every situation, confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. That there is a benediction in this situation also. The Lord's internal energy is also acting and is inviting me to take one step in my sharanagati, in my journey from external activities to eternal activities. So that is this about this verse. And also I would just like to recollect today is the disappearance day of Srila Jayadev Goswami, who was completely situated under the internal energy of the Lord, and he had a vision, or he wrote a verse to the fact that glorifying Srimati Radharani, the internal energy of the Lord, that how even Krishna puts his head at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. But then he thought probably this verse is not correct. What did I write? Any kind of strike did or something. And then Krishna came and wrote it back. There is a story of Jayadev Goswami writing a particular verse. So Jayadev Goswami was that great soul whose disappearance is today. So we beg his blessings. We pray to him that that we can ever increasingly make ourselves detached from the external energy of the Lord and become increasingly attached to Lord's internal energy. And this will help us to always feel encouraged in our devotional service and make a steady progress. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. We have some time for question and answer. Rasma Nityanand Prabhu told me you must keep some time for question answers, not take the whole time speaking yourself. So we have some time. If there are any comments, any corrections, I would like to invite that before. Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
There's no correction. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. When I first heard this purport, I thought of our deities. And the reason I thought of them is because every morning we come and see how they're dressed so gorgeously. But here in this purport, Prabhupada is revealing what they're feeling. So I just wanted to read 2 sentences from this purport.
Please. Yeah.
Because I'm going to be meditating on this every morning on my way to Mangalarti. And when we greet the deity, I'm going to be just trying to remember this. Because we have association with parents, children, husband, wife, but the feelings and mood of the person we associate with are so insignificant compared to what's being described here as the perpetual mood of Krishna. What a difference to be Krishna's friend and anyone else's. So let me just open this up and read it very quickly. First Srila Prabhupada said, Lord Kṛṣṇa is in eternal blissful enjoyment of the spiritual nature. Then it goes further and says, the Lord is eternally joyful and cognizant in the taste derived from such transcendental bliss. So every time we see the deity, they're in bliss.
Yeah.
The deities are completely, eternally joyful and in bliss and inviting us to see them and associate. So I thought that was just a wonderful revelation of Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, right actually, sir. This verse we can just meditate on Radha Madhav, Panchatattva, Lord Nrsimhadev. Beautiful description. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that insight. Yes. Okay, we'll have one question from Mataji side and then Prabhuji. Yes, you can take.
So, Prabhuji, whatever you told, I mean, I theoretically understand, okay? But if I have to tell this to somebody who is even practicing Krishna consciousness for 20 years, somebody who is engrossed in that problem, if they are in that situation, they cannot see it, they cannot hear what we are saying. So what do you say that, how do we, help an individual, a devotee, especially you practicing for so long, how do we help them? Because even when I was a young devotee, just started practicing, somebody said, read this shloka, chant a little extra, and for me it was like, Hare, I'm going through so much problem and you're asking me to read something. I wanted somebody to listen to me.
Yeah.
So, but there may be devotees after 20 years also, they feel that they need to be heard more. So, we can hear to listen to them. But at the end, we haven't helped them in a solution-oriented way. I mean, I listen to them, but what is the next step for them? Or we should just let the process go on and let time heal them. What is your say on this?
Okay, Hare Krishna. So, it's a very relevant question for all of us. I would just say that there are two things. One thing is our own perspective. First, before we help others, we can help others to the extent we imbibe Srimad Bhagavatam. That means when we face a challenging situation, are we able to remember these verses and are we able to at least make an attempt to act as per Srimad Bhagavatam? Are we able to take that perspective? Right? So first of all, I would say that before we instruct anyone, we need to first imbibe Srimad Bhagavatam. Imbibe. So therefore, we have to live by this principle. And we are discussing in a peaceful situation, right? So that, in a difficult situation, whatever we have listened, that can help us. So it is described that the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. That's a principle, right? So the more that means the more we try to understand, practice in peace, the less we bleed in war. So this knowledge will help us. As far as other devotees are concerned, we should be trying to ease out their situation externally. Though they are suffering externally in whatever difficulty, the problem may be that when someone needs affection, we give instruction. So that instruction will not stand. First we need to show affection to that person. Help that person ease out and say, I am there with you. Tell me, what help you need. Frankly, I am there with you in this difficulty. So the person, feels okay, feels strength. And I would say by doing that, when a person feels strength, a person himself or herself will be able to also then act as per Srimad Bhagavatam. But at the time, a support system is needed. So therefore, devotees have to actually provide support to each other. And then if a person really wants to understand the situation philosophically and look forward, then we can share. But our first, or for, I would say first, second or whatever, in a long term, we need to be there giving support and help and affection and love and our care to that person. So that is what we should be doing. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay, Prabhu? Yes, Prabhu had raised the hand. Sorry, I delayed your...
Thank you for this class. And you spoke about external energy and the internal energy, and to move from the external to internal. So it seems to me that basically we are trying to concentrate on our advancement in Krishna consciousness. The more we try to stay on our process of advancement, what happens is sometimes we begin to become attached to that advancement in Krishna consciousness. So my question is, what is the real secret in achieving pure love of Godhead, even though we try our utmost to practice devotional service?
Can you please repeat the last line? The last sentence?
What is the real way that we can actually advance in Krishna consciousness, come to pure love of Godhead, right? Even though, we can actually slip away from the path. What's the best way to stay on the path and to advance properly?
Okay, let me try to just repeat your question so that make sure that I have understood the question. I'll try to rephrase your question in my own words. So you said that we are trying to move from external energy to internal energy, and we may become attached to our advancement. You mentioned that word, attached to our advancement. What do you mean by that? We become attached to our advancement?
Yeah, so we could become attached to our progress because we're trying to advance in Krishna consciousness, and we could become attached to that. And in doing that, we can miss the personality of Godhead, and we could concentrate on our own selves. So my question is, what's the best way to stay on the right path and to stay in focus of Krishna at all times and not deviate to ourselves and our own personal achievements?
Okay, fine. That means we could become very self-centered, that I just focus on my own advancement, and then I may not be so much caring for others, self-centric attitude, so on. And then that could also be a stumbling block. So, fine, I will just describe one incident, probably which encapsulates your question. There was a Brahmana who would do his Gayatri at perfect time, 3 times a day. Right? And then that Brahmana one day was taking a nap, and the nap became a little longer, and the time for Gayatri was passing away. So one person came and woke him up. He said, only 5 minutes remaining to do Gayatri. The time will pass away. You have never ever missed the right time. And that person became alert and quickly, did the ātmanā and did the Gayatri. And he said, you have saved my spiritual advancement. Otherwise I would have fallen from the path. I have been Pakka Brahman, doing Gayatri 3 times a day at Pakka time. So he said, who are you? Oh, my dear friend. He said, I am Kali. Kali? Your friend? How can Kali be a friend? So he described that he came to wake him up so that this person remains proud of his doing all his activities perfectly. So that pride became a stumbling block in advancement. So pride in one's being, staunch devotee and so on, right? I never miss Mangalarti, I never miss Bhagavatam class. That pride became an obstacle, or that pride would be an obstacle, but if that pride would be broken, then he would advance in spiritual life. So the Kali didn't want that. So he woke him up to keep his pride intact in his Brahmanical practices. So basically, I'm just trying to say that your question is similar to that we could sometimes become very self-centered, very attached to our own spiritual progress. And that attachment or that pride could be a stumbling block. So how do we stay away from any kind of distractions, attachments, and make a steady progress? Am I right? There could be different perspective, but I would just say the best thing on the path of spiritual life is Mahajano Yen Gata Sapantha. We follow in the footsteps of the great souls. And that means we read about how the Mahajanas have acted in different situations in Srimad Bhagavatam from the life of Prabhupada. We hear. So by regularly hearing about Srimad Bhagavatam, regularly hearing about the activities of pure devotee, our intelligence remains sharp. Our intelligence remains sharp when we are regularly discussing, and thus the chance of becoming attached or being distracted will be very less. So that is one thing I can say. Yes, Prabhu, you can add to that.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I wanted to add one thought on this question.
Yes.
We have learned in reading Prabhupada's books and studying them that our spiritual advancement is not the result of our greatest endeavors. That's a transcendental misconception. By our endeavoring, and Krishna sees we are sincere, any advancement that comes from that is the grace and gift of Krishna and Guru. And this attachment that you were describing may be because one has forgotten that you don't make advancement by your own strength. You don't reach God by your own strength. You reach God by Him taking notice of your sincerity and humility, and then He awards you blissful realizations. It's coming from Krishna, not your effort and endeavors. As long as we can remember that, it will help us not to be too attached that, oh, I have such great sadhana, or I have great this or that. Because that's not what's going to get you to Krishna. It's your sincerity and humility and recognition that any advancement is a gift from Krishna and Guru.
Jai, thank you. That's the perfect ending. Jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. I can talk to you personally. We have to end the class on time.